Think we're live. It's 2 p.m. Hi, everyone. My name is Shannon O'Brien. For those of you who don't know me, I am the founder of Whole You Career and Life Strategy. And I'm joined today by my two friends, and I call them the Dream Team, Tom and Robert. And they have helped me save my business and make it more productive and reach more people using the magic of technology. So I thought I don't want to keep secrets to myself, and I also want to learn more. So they're going to be sharing with you today. We're actually using this platform called StreamYard, and it's something that Tom introduced me to. So apparently, fingers crossed, it is streaming to LinkedIn, which is the primary platform that I use, but also Facebook, also Instagram, and also YouTube if you happen to be on one of those or prefer those. So the topic today, we use a little catchy one that I think pertains to all of us: how to unblock your writer's block. If you're like me, you're sitting down to write an article or write a newsletter or even write an email, and you're thinking, like, what am I going to say? So AI, ChatGPT, these different tools can actually help you, not to cheat or to plagiarize, but just to get you started a little bit. So I think that's, we can use these tools to our advantage just to get started. And I did want to mention two very practical examples of using ChatGPT or AI, I should say, in general, that I was not aware of. But one of my friends had this very beautiful LinkedIn profile picture. And I said, where did you get that photo done? Who took that for you? And she said, oh, it was AI. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so impressive. She looked, she had like full makeup and looked 30 pounds lighter. And I was like, I want to use that too. So I think that there's some ways that it might feel like cheating, but there's ways that we can use it for that. Another practical example is, for example, I'm trying to be on a gluten-free diet. So I went into ChatGPT and I said, can you give me a menu that I can have these meals, but they're gluten-free? And maybe you could say, I don't want onions or whatever. And you plug it in and it gives you a menu. So I just feel like that's incredible, right? Is to like kind of save you the time and save you the anguish. So those are two practical examples, but back to Tom and Rob, who are going to be telling you the bulk of their expertise with these different tools, because I'm certainly not an expert, but want to be. And I think I'm going to pass it over first to Tom and then to Rob, and they're going to introduce themselves and share with you how you can use AI and these tools specifically around creativity. And like I said, unblocking writer's block, but how to be really creative and use technology as a friend, like almost like a brainstorming buddy. So, Tom, if you're ready, I'd love for you to take it away.
Oh, thank you, Shannon. First of all, I am friends with Shannon and Rob, but I'm also a client of Shannon's wonderful services, and I have been since the beginning of COVID. And there's going to be some stuff in my presentation, Shannon, that goes all the way back to like our first conversation. So it's amazing to see us kind of come full circle, 5-6 years later, and have the chance to talk about this. But so I'm Tom McGonigal. I'm a solutions architect at a company called SUSE. And SUSE has a number of products. The most well known as really the first Linux company, if anyone's ever heard of Linux. But in today's market, we also sell a bunch of Kubernetes products and some edge IoT type software products. I have a master's degree in information technology from Bentley University, which is local to the Boston area. And one of the questions I got from Shannon before this was, how did I get into technology? And so when I was 19, I'd never touched. When I went to college at Bentley, I had never touched a computer, and they make you buy a laptop. And it was during the .com bubble, and I was able to get a job as an intern at a .com, and I basically just carried computers back and forth, from cube to cube. But it was a great learning experience. And what I did is I learned Linux. I learned about Linux, and that was almost 27 years ago. And it's amazing that today I'm still making my living off of that internship experience in tech. And just getting into Linux and being curious about it has created this really wonderful career. And for me, this whole time I've been in tech, where I met my friend Rob at Booz Allen Hamilton, which is this wonderful government consulting company. We were working in the Boston office together, and then Rob actually was in my wedding, Shannon. I'm not sure if you knew that. He was a groomsman of my wedding. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Rob, if you want to introduce yourself and how you got into tech.
Yeah, sure thing. So I've been kind of indirectly in tech for about 15 years. I started out my career in consulting, doing some government consulting first, and then doing some commercial consulting. But the common thread was really around data science, kind of the precursor to a number of the AI type of things that we're going to talk to you about today. But that's what initially piqued my interest in things that could deliver, additional insights. And it's really been only in the past 6 or 7 years where it's been more about how much more freedom AI could provide to us in our work lives and our personal lives. And so for the last 6 years almost, I've been working for a company called UiPath, which is focused heavily on AI and automation for the enterprise, for businesses, really trying to automate manual, repetitive work using AI and really freeing people up for more creative purposes, which is a real important aspect of this talk. I've known Tom, as he mentioned, for many years. I've known Shannon for now also many years, and just a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So I think without further ado, Rob, I'm going to just jump into our presentation. So I'm just going to click on the share screen and get the presentation going. And the byline or the subject for our talk today is how to unblock your writer's block. And I think that's really a really important question. It's basically at its core is how do you be as creative as possible using UiPath? And so that's really what we're going to be going over today. We went over the introductions. I'm just going to skip by that, and I'm just going to go to this question of mastery, right? So I think I mentioned it. Rob, I can't remember if Rob mentioned it, and I know Shannon did not mention it, but all of us on this call have master's degrees. I think Shannon might have too. And what does that actually mean? What does it mean to be a master, right? And so the greatest blog I've ever read on the subject, and really the treatment I've ever read on the subject, is this Mastery by the Todoist company. Todoist is a to-do list app, and they go through this kind of beginning, and they talk about Katsuka Hokoshi's The Great Wave of Kanagawa, and it took him 30 years to paint that painting. He was working on it for 30 years, and it went through many, many iterations and so forth. And there's a bunch of research in kind of mastery, and it was discussed in a book by Malcolm Gladwell that it can take up to 10,000 hours to achieve mastery, right? And so what I'm saying and what I'm trying to articulate today is that with the GPTs and everything, you can now unblock those 10,000 hours and do it in a far, far quicker way. So, that master's degree that we all got, and I know I had a master's degree, and I didn't think I was a master at the end of that master's degree, but I'd argue that with ChatGPT, maybe I could be, or maybe, a new student could be, and so forth. And then, so I highly recommend that really great blog. And something that came up, and you might remember me saying this before, Shannon, is using your computer like a beautiful instrument, right? And that really is a place that I've come from throughout my tech career. It's using the tools to do great things in your career and in your life using these wonderful tools. And so, this picture that we're looking at is a painting of a Stradivarius. It's a Stradivarius maker, and it's a very famous painting. And you can get it off of Wikipedia when you go to the painting. I mean, when you go to the Wikipedia site. But what I'm suggesting is, how do you use ChatGPT to play your computer like a beautiful instrument, or play or use your career and focus on your career so that it's like making beautiful music? In my introduction, I mentioned that I've had this wonderful, really fun, really exciting career, and I'd argue that I have done that to some degree throughout my career. And then one of the other things I wanted to introduce is that there's this wonderful phrase that's coming out now, and it's artificial intelligence is equal to intelligence augmentation. And that's really what we're going to be talking about today as well. We're going to be talking about how do you augment your intelligence to be as creative as possible, right? That's what we get from ChatGPT. That's what we get from Gemini. That's what we get from Claude. And those are some of the tools that we're going to be talking about today. That's what you get. You get this intelligence augmentation technology, approach. And it's very, very powerful. It's very, very sophisticated and very, very useful. And so just a little bit of history on these technologies and in AI in general. So 2018 was the year of AI for me, and it's the year I read AI Superpowers by Kai-Fu Lee, and this is a very, very famous, world-renowned AI engineer and entrepreneur, and he's based out of China. And that year is also the years that I started using the year that I started using Grammarly and Google Photos and Alexa and Otter.ai. And so that was one of the first experiences I had with Shannon. I had a consultation with her. We used Otter.ai to create a voice transcription of it, and then we could re-listen to it later and then turn it into notes. And you can take those textual notes now with the things of these GPT technologies and summarize that conversation and pull out all the important artifacts of it that are really germane to that conversation and do really kind of innovative, creative things with it. And so that's really where we're coming from. But when did the GPT stuff come out? Well, ChatGPT was released on 11/22/2022, and it was like I remember it very clearly when it happened. I'm sure Rob does too. That it was like a bomb went off, and everyone in the whole tech industry was like, "Oh my gosh, this is going to be life changing." It's not just a new way to search or a new way to create. It's actually a new way to entirely do your whole workflow. And so we're going to be showing some examples of that today. I know Shannon gave her examples, but we have some about specifically on how to use ChatGPT to unblock your writer's block, and Rob's going to be walking through that. And so in June 14th, 2022, a very, very good book called Building a Second Brain came out. And this Building a Second Brain talks about offloading and all of the stuff in your life into a capturing system, and then organizing it, and then distilling it, and then using that distillation. That's really what the GPT technologies are going to give you. So you have the ability to capture, organize, distill, and then express, right? So that's really where the creativity comes out. And I'll be walking through that process today, and I have some tips and tricks on how to do that code, CODE, capture, organize, distill, express. And that's all written up about in the Building a Second Brain book. That's really the core of the Building a Second Brain book. It's having that capture system and the organizational system, and that distillation is provided by like the GPTs. And so we're going to be walking through that today. And this is just more kind of information about CODA, the capture, organize, distill, express. And then that idea of CODA really is expressed or is written about in the Building a Second Brain book that came out in 2022. But this idea actually goes all the way back to David Allen's Getting Things Done, which is a very, very famous to-do book, right? And it's a very good book on how to get things done. And that came out in 2001. I've read it. It was really kind of like a very, very, very popular book in Silicon Valley, and people really subscribed to it. And it had basically an identical idea. And it talked about capture, clarify, organize, reflect. Reflect would be kind of that distillation, and then the engage. And so it had a very, very similar concept to the CODA in Building a Second Brain. And so the CODA in Building the Second Brain is, once again, capture, organize, distill, and then express. And so this idea has kind of been around, in other words. And so how do you capture? So the very, very first thing you need to do is you need to come up with a plan to capture all of this information that's coming out into your life, and so that you can use it to be distilled later on into using ChatGPT or using Gemini or using Claude, so that you can distill all that information, all that textual information or picture information or audio information, all that stuff that's floating around in your life, and you can use that to summarize and to create new creative endeavors, right? So you can use ChatGPT to make these connections and use them to make these generative connections that are going to allow you to express yourself and be as creative as possible. And so in this diagram, this is a Building a Second Brain diagram. We have all these different inputs. We have text, we have handwritten notes, we have screenshots, web pages, photos, paper documents, and voice memos. And I mentioned the voice memos earlier. And so what we want to do is we want to capture all these things. And how do I do it? I do it in using this tool that we're actually looking at right now. This tool that we're looking at right now is called Paper. It's paper.dropbox.com. It is a property of dropbox.com, and it allows me to create and create notes and capture ideas and capture links and capture textual information into a format. But what does that format give us? it gives me the ability to capture all that information in a format called Markdown. And Markdown is typically like a computer thing, but the Markdown language allows us to express and define various textual elements, and for such as large header, medium header, small header, by just using pound signs. And it allows us to create numbered and bulleted lists very quickly with just an exclamation, with just a number or just a star. It allows us to quote things, and it allows us to generate and capture very information coming into your life very quickly in a textual format. And so this content can then all be captured and copied into a ChatGPT tool like ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini. And I keep using those three examples, and we're going to be showing you that later. But so there's this concept of Markdown, and then in terms of capture, I just also wanted to show you that there's also the idea of mind maps, right? So we have this mind map here, and this mind map is a mind map of a digital life mind node. This was created by me in a tool called Mind Node, and I'm able to export this mind node into Markdown. And so we can see that right here in Markdown. I've previously done that. It's right here in digitallife.txt. And then this is all the Markdown that was created that specifies this entire mind map. And if anyone's not familiar with mind map, it's an organizational technique to map all the different connections between your subject and your brain and its downstream connections. And so we have this ability to express it. We can then copy and paste this entire this Markdown content, and we can run it through ChatGPT, and we can ask it questions about our mind map, and we can use it to distill, and we can use it to express all these different new creative connections that you, because you're kind of in the middle of it, can't probably see. But with the thanks of ChatGPT, you can see it. And so that's just another example. I'm just going back to the writers, the mind map. I mean the paper.doc, and then I'm getting close to handing it over to Rob to show some examples and using some demos of ChatGPT to specifically unblock your writer's block with ChatGPT. But one of the last things I wanted to mention is that there's there is a need to, once you've captured all this material and you're building the second brain, before you get to the distillation step, remember CODA, capture, organize, distill, express. Before you get to the distillation, you need to organize and prioritize. And so the Building a Second Brain book also has a methodology for organizing your information, and it's called PARA, which stands for Projects, Areas, Resources, and Archive. And project is short-term efforts in your work or life that you're working on right now. Area is long-term responsibilities you want to manage over time. Resources are topics or interests that may be useful in the future. And archive, inactive items from the other three categories. And so what this allows us to do is it allows us to enforce an organizational methodology on top of our capture system. And then once we captured and organized it, the next step is to distill it, which Rob is going to do. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about before I hand it over to Rob is this concept of prioritization. And you should, as part of your prioritization and organization of these projects, you can specify: does this get me closer to my goal? Does it matter to my boss? Does it make money? Does it make my life easier? Does it have to be done today? And if any of those items have yeses to them, you prioritize those, right? So this is a prioritization methodology that sits on top of the project methodology, that sits on top of the capturing, right? So there's capturing, organizing, and then the prioritization. And then we get to the really cool part, why we're all here, right? And so I'm going to hand it over to Rob now. But what the really cool part is the distillation, right? And so Rob is going to do some distillation right now. And thank you for Maria Mora for the comment. If anyone has any questions or comments, please feel free. I'm going to try and put my my link tree in so you can get in touch with me, off this webinar and so forth if you have any other questions. But I'm just going to hand it over to Rob.
Yeah, no, thank you, Tom. You covered a whole lot in terms of how you prepare yourself for being able to best utilize some of these tools, and you'll hear again the names of them as you'll hear ChatGPT, you'll hear GPT, you'll hear a large language model, you'll hear LLM. Right there's Shannon spoke previously about things with visual touch up. All of it's AI. We're really focused on the things that are writer oriented. And so there's a number of tools I'm going to show you, because really I think it's important to just use what's the least level of friction for you, right? So you start using it as part of your normal routine, as part of one of the first things you do. You've assembled all of this information. You're making sure that when I am blocked, at any point I am blocked, I'm not staying blocked for 2 hours. I'm staying blocked for 2 seconds before I look at a way to get over that hurdle. So one of the things we thought would be nice to do, we'll start off with the most popular of the tools, is really use ChatGPT here. This is just refers to the model number, the latest iteration. And for those of you that haven't seen this, this is something that you could start using for free with certain limits. And then once you hit the limits, I think it's $20 a month, and then you get unlimited access to really be able to ask any questions, generate images, even if you wanted to, right, and do a large number of things to a very high degree of accuracy. But if we stay with the theme of really using these tools to unblock me, you're on this webinar. We appreciate you on this webinar. But if you have that question and you want the first and fastest answer to how do I get past writer's block, well, you know what you do? You've heard that phrase, let me Google that for you. Let me GPT that for you. So how do I unblock writer's block? All right. And so here, GPT is going to give me various suggestions, right? Whether it's, free writing, changing your environment, setting small goals, outlining your ideas. On the face of these things look really good. And you can really go deeper talking to different experts and figuring out better ways to do something. But if we wanted to, break it into two groups, if you're having writer blocks, you can't get started, I could just throw a few examples in there. So I'm going to, say use ChatGPT for the purpose of brainstorming. So I'll say, oops, I'm writing a science fiction novel, but I'm struggling to come up with a unique plot twist. Can you help me brainstorm some ideas, right? This is the type of thing that you would do to a real digital assistant, and they would know when you're misspelling, so it's not really a big deal at all. And in this case, it gives me a number of ideas. So this is just me starting from scratch. I'm writer's block before I've even gotten started. And so I'm now able to think, oh, okay, I'm science fiction. Am I going to do an alien invasion? The world is a simulation, right? And then I can really use it and probe deeper. A lot of times people use it as I ask one question, don't go deeper. No, dive in. Say, give me more examples related to alien invasion. Ask me follow-up questions so I can be better unblocked. All right. And now it's able to say, certainly I have some different ideas. Okay, plot twist. It could be, oh, the aliens are future humans. That I might write that book. I don't know what that. That's a very interesting one. The aliens are, the invasion is an illusion. Humans invoke the invasion. The aliens are us, right? And I can keep probing and going deeper on this, right, as if it was a friend sitting next to me. And by the end of it, I have a much better sense, right, of what I want to do. Now, this is ChatGPT. This is the tool that you probably hear the most of. But Tom also mentioned one that's also popular, as a standalone tool, and it's called Claude. Again, different type of interface, different type of interaction mode. But let's let's do another example here just so you can see and feel what that might look like. Oops. So let's say I'm having trouble writing a dialogue scene between two characters who are arguing about a secret, right? So I know that I want to do this in a book. This is a nonfiction case. Can you help me draft it, right? And now you're going to see something completely different. Uh, 1 second, I think I got a freeze. Or maybe I've actually hit the limit here for Claude Pro. So this is the live demo, and then now you get to see what actually happens when you don't pay the $20 a month for a particular tool. So I'm going to go on to the next one. I'm going to copy this to another one where I do pay. And that would be Gemini. So there's two I'm going to show you that may be very relevant to you just based off of your work environment or tools you already use. Gemini is Google's product. So if you use Google Docs, use Google PowerPoint, they, of course, give you this capability that's very much like ChatGPT, just to ask a question in a chat box. And my copy and paste is not working here. Bear with me. I'll just type that out again. All right. So here is, once again, very similar to GPT. It gives me different, characters, dialogues, an example thing. I may not take this, if I'm a true writer, I'm not taking this and just copying it in, but it gives me some ideas and it gets my, brain moving. Right now with Gemini, I could be using, when I pay, I think it's also 20 a month. If you wanted the unlimited access, you get the ability to use these prompts, but also within Google Docs, you can use the capability. Also within Google Slides, use the capability. Even if you were, for whatever reason, let's say you tracked characters and themes in something like Excel spreadsheets. I don't know if anybody does that. Maybe nonfiction books or nonfiction writers, we keep track of, different quotes and things like that they want to have. You would be able to also use some of these AI capabilities within those tools. Microsoft's another example where they have, the typical chat-based interface. But just like with Google Docs and such, if I'm in Microsoft, I can have this little co-pilot icon, right? Again, this is something that comes with people that I think are paying additional for the service. But now what I can do is operate a little bit more seamlessly. So let's say I've already written something. So I'm past the day one writer's block, and I've been writing for an hour, but I'm stuck, right? And I might say, I might click here and say, give me a very dramatic next paragraph to this story. Right. So this is a story about, some curious child named Finn. All right. There we go. Okay. Now it's creating a draft. And so I could decide to keep it, do a different iteration. In this case, I'll click keep it. And now I have, you don't have time to look through all the story, but you can see that it was dramatic. Suddenly, a deafening crack echoed through the clearing, tearing Finn from his reverie, right? So on and so forth. So my advice to you is to try a number of these tools. There might be some that make a lot of sense for you just to use from a convenience perspective, right? And looking at where you most often have writer's block. Maybe it's while you're inside of a document, you're already writing, you just want that seamless friction to just say, give me two quick ideas. Give me an example next sentence. Or maybe it's something like what I showed you here above, where you need suggestions, you need tips, you need thematic, capabilities. Use that, use it freely. Maybe you have an example, and this might be the last thing I'll show you, where, let's say, you've created maybe an outline so far for your book, so you're kind of in between stages. So let's say you have that outline. You might go and say, okay, now flesh out my outline, right? Or give me example quotes from my outline. So I'll stop there, right? And Shannon, we can take it from here, but hopefully the people on this call got something out of that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rob. And thank you, Tom. Thank you for that context. We have a couple people in the room. Maura, full disclosure, is my cousin. I think, yeah, you stopped sharing. Yeah, I just see your face now.
Are you on mute, or am I?
I think it might be you. Or can you hear me, Tom?
I can hear you.
Oh, you can?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So apparently it froze for people in LinkedIn. So there was some confusion. But I don't know if that's because I was toggling in and out of LinkedIn. Danya is here.
I checked on LinkedIn too, and it was working when I checked on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for troubleshooting. I'm not sure what's happening, but apparently it's freezing in LinkedIn. Danya, is it still frozen? I'm not able to type for her. Let me see. Are you able, Tom, to go into the LinkedIn and
I can try it
and try to make a comment? Yeah, that was strange, because there was a couple people in LinkedIn and they were saying that it was freezing, and I'm not really sure why. There was Herman. Hi, Herman, if you're still there. And Richard. Hi, Richard, if you're still there. Sorry about the freezing, the technology. This is the first time that I'm using it, so just getting familiar, and it might be something on my computer, but hopefully it unfreezes. It froze on you twice. Sorry about that, Herman. Is it unfrozen now, or is it still frozen for you, Herman? Just curious.
It's working for me.
Okay. They're saying it's fine now. That's great. So sorry about the digital snafu. That comes with the territory, right? Yeah, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Rob, for those overviews. Again, my cousin, she's on the Facebook version. Hi, Maura. She says it looks great on her end. That's fantastic. Good to know. And she apparently uses it every day. She was saying she uses Gemini every day. So we're a couple years apart. I'm not going to say how many, but I think it's a generational thing as well. I mean, technology gurus like yourself are probably using it like it's another appendix, right? Another hand. It's just come so naturally to you. And then maybe people in younger generation are using it. It's coming naturally to them too. I feel like a little bit of a Luddite, that I'm not like so quick to adapt it, or adopt it, I should say. But are you seeing other people? Do you feel like it's like a quick learning curve, or is it like the people that you kind of, your clients, or people that you work for, I guess, customers? Is it a slow process of trying to learn these tools, or what has your been experience in teaching other people?
Tom, you're at.
Yesterday, Rob mentioned to me that only 3 or 4% of people are using generative GPTs. Is that right?
I think ChatGPT, it was only about 4%. So, in generally, I find I don't know how much difficulty it is actually for people to use these tools. I think there is still, we haven't crossed the hurdle of awareness for most people. People know it could do something cool, but that's a very different thing than translating it and using it on a regular basis for your life. People might know that vitamins and supplements are beneficial for them. Cognitively they know that, but actually putting it into practice is a different thing. Same with exercise, whatever it might be. And I think there's an intimidation factor sometimes that, oh, this will be, complicated. It will be work, right, to be able to get use out of it. But I think in general, it's hard for me to say it's just something really difficult to people to adopt, because I've gotten family members that are, in the 70s to be able to use it. Do they use it in all the same ways that I would? No, because I'm using it every single day in a variety of ways. Creating sample, code. So I think of them as a bunch of different personas. I go into it and it's like the best, coding assistant I've had, the best assistant for uncovering writer's block, the best research assistant for telling me what's the top 5 products I want to buy a product in this category, what's the, steal that information across the internet for me, right? So I basically just look at it as if I've got a staff, not of one assistant, but basically, hundreds, each one is specialized in something. And it's hard, I think, to get people in that mindset. So they'll still do things a traditional way, 2 hours struggling, trying to figure something out, because it's hard to believe. In some ways, I think it's very hard to believe, oh, I could get this answer in 1 minute, right? It's so unreal, and it's happening so fast that I don't think a number of people really believe it or trust it. Otherwise, I'm hoping that's the case. Otherwise, they're spending a whole lot of wasted time for no reason.
Yeah, so 2 follow-up questions. Thank you so much for that. And I think you're jogging people's, imagination there with all the examples that you gave. For example, product reviews. Tell me the best sponge or whatever product it is. Let me aggregate, let me get feedback from all of these different sites. Is that what's happening? What exactly happens when I say, what is the best brand of, let's say, what are those called? I'm blanking on the name of paper towel in your kitchen. Is it, so when we talk about trust or skepticism, is it like, are the brands getting in there, like Downy's in there and like fudging the data so it's going to tell me to buy Downy? There is a level of trust when it comes to technology, but I'm curious about that because you did mention product reviews.
Yeah, I mean, you can't take what gets spit back out as gospel, but to give you a high level view on how it works, right? So when it comes to internet-based data, these AI models, large language models, they're trained, very largely off of data that they've scraped from the web. So they have, historical data, which includes what, others have said for reviews. So there might be 100 reviews on what's the best brand of paper towel, right? So they're looking across that 100, as opposed to you opening those 100 links and trying to find the common thread in agreement. They're looking and they're finding the common thread in agreement. And if they don't have data previously scraped, because let's say they're only scraping data, I'm using an example, maybe once a month, and they need something more current, then they go out to the key sites that they know of and scrape in real time that information. Now, the reason why I said you have to take some stuff with a grain of salt, right, is let's say there's one particular site that is untrustworthy but gets a lot of traffic, right? Its reviews might get more heavily weighted in their models, right? So they will, for instance, often reference a very popular, worldwide based newspaper than the local town paper, right, in terms of what's being used to train their model. So if you've got, reviewer, for example, that people consider to be untrustworthy but has a whole lot of reviews, then it's very possible that could skew a few things. So just FYI, but it's a much better starting point than scrolling through 100 links.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think it's very inspiring for you to say, I have a team of 100 minds working for me, and getting things done so much quicker. I think it's very, very inspiring. There's something, obviously there's something there, and I'm wanting to get in on this for sure. You had mentioned a 70-year-old family member. I don't know if you want to share details. I had heard something about one of your family members getting a lot of benefit out of this. I'd love to hear the case study if you're willing to share.
Yeah. So my parents have used it quite a bit for a lot of research, right? So to know, they've worked in pharmaceutical chemistry, environmental chemistry, just to know what some of the latest proposed regulations might be, to assess some of the new scientific discoveries really quickly, and really just synthesize a large amount of information really quickly, and that helps with things that they need to write or offer up an opinion on something. Right? They have a lot more information at their fingertip. It saves many hours.
Wow, it's incredible. Okay, we're going to go back over to the Q&A here. Seems like people are having difficulty with the LinkedIn, and then that's frozen. That's a shame because it is the primary platform I've been promoting on, but Tom was kind enough to put in the YouTube link in case you want to watch it there. It's also available on Facebook. The Instagram, I don't think it went live, so I'll have to figure out how to troubleshoot that next time. But are there any other questions? Maura makes a comment that ChatGPT is not very good at math and it's still learning. Smiley face, or the crying face with tears. Just FYI, she tested it out a few different ways.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know how to test ChatGPT on math, but have you tested it? Have you tested it to see, like, just for yourself, some questions in terms of its accuracy?
I have, as a matter of fact, because I have a niece that's around teenage years, and so I communicate with her just to help with math homework, and it doesn't matter how old you get. Math is done in different ways. There's different techniques, and there's just some things that you're going to have to spend 30 minutes to remember how to do it, or you could use GPT to tell you how to do it. I think she's right. It's particularly historically, it's not been perfect at giving the right answer for a number of things, but I have found it to be pretty good in articulating the approach. Right. So if you say, okay, I have this geometry problem where I need to find, this is a simple example, distance between 2 points, right? Maybe it, messes up or something on the calculus. But if the way that you tell it to do anything that's logical, and this is a trick that I use quite often, is I say, can you get me to the answer, but can you explain step by step? So for two reasons that's useful. One is, even if it messes up along the way, it still gives you step-by-step instructions so you can catch it, you can correct it, right? You can do it yourself and you can understand it. And two, when you actually tell it to go step by step, and more of the language models are building this in, their accuracy actually improves. It's like a hack. Because you force the language model. You say, don't just give me any random answer that you kind of like pulled and you're kind of consolidating from the internet. I want you to create step one, then feed step one into step two, feed step two into step three. You're forcing, in a way, a language model to think logically. So remember that phrase, explain step by step, and you'll get a lot more response. It'll be more to read through. But you can trust it a lot more in different ways.
And it sounds like there's a dialogue. You're saying that it's learning from your cues and prompts too. So you're like almost
Yes.
talking to a friend. Don't give it to me like that. Please, like, help me. Like, think of it as like an ongoing dialogue between you, that you're helping them to help you.
Yeah, exactly. And as they were talking, I was looking it up. There are various leaderboards for the various models. Yeah, to be honest with you, every week one model becomes better. ChatGPT has largely been, nothing's stayed above it for more than like a week, right, at a time. But right now, for math problems, Claude is rated the best. In what they call the chatbot arena. Gemini is second best. ChatGPT is third best. They're all pretty close, though. All very
How many
close.
are there? You're mentioning Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini. Those are the same type of things. They're just a different brand, basically. And how many are there? Or is it like a plethora? Are they? Can anyone?
So there's so there's other ones. I think Tom had a list. Those are the most popular ones. There is Meta has one, Meta Facebook, called Llama, Llama. And they also make that available in like their WhatsApp or maybe their Facebook. I don't know if it's in Facebook, but something you can chat with. I know it at least shows up in their WhatsApp. On the X platform, there's something called Grok. That's also, decently popular. But I would say in order of popularity, it's definitely ChatGPT, probably followed by Claude, probably followed by Gemini for Google.
Okay.
And then Microsoft Copilot, for everybody's awareness, really relies on it. Microsoft owns 49% of OpenAI, which is the company that makes ChatGPT, and their Copilot tool is actually using ChatGPT within it, right? Slightly different version, right? But if you got ChatGPT or you got Copilot, you're getting something slightly similar.
Wow, good to know. I'm seeing one specific question from Mosen. I don't know if Tom, if you want to take this one.
Yeah, I was excited to talk about this one.
Do you want to read it out loud first so everyone else can?
Please.
Can hear? Okay, so Mosen asks, how would you recommend utilizing these AI tools to identify and improve inefficiencies in current system setups? For example, enhancing your existing second brain system.
Yeah, so frankly, I was looking for a call to action for this webinar, right? And so I think this is a great call to action. It's like, how can you use one of the generative text tools, like Gemini or ChatGPT or Claude, to improve your current second brain, right? And so if you're out there in TV land and you don't have a second brain, like, first of all, your first homework is to get a second brain, and your second one is to start improving on it, right? But Shannon, I was thinking this could be a call to action for our next meeting, where everyone could come back with some substantial improvement that they made to their second brain by using GPT or using one of the tools. And so, to specifically answer Moisen's question, it's very similar to what Rob kind of demoed, right? So you go into one of these tools and then you ask it that question. And what I recommend is organizing it based on the code method, right? So capture, organize, distill, and then engage, right? So the first question is, what tools or how can I improve my current capturing system? Tom McGonigal, use a capturing system for screenshots from Dropbox called Capture. So there's this wonderful, screenshotting tool, and it can also do screen recordings. And so you can take these screenshots of, if I'm programming, I can take a screenshot of the programming code and feed that into ChatGPT. ChatGPT can then source it and do like optical character recognition on it, Shannon, believe it or not, and then give results back on the screenshot. Like, it's something I didn't demo, and it's something that you can do from the phone apps too, because you have your camera and you have the ability to pull in photos of various textual information and so forth that you capture. So what I'm suggesting is use the code methodology, capture, organize, distill, express, and start querying and start interfacing with a GPT tool to see what improvements you can make. And I think you can ask it questions, it'll kind of spit back suggestions, and then you can ask it further questions, and just start that process of prompt engineering. That's what it's called when you're kind of interacting with these tooling.
Donya says, cool assignment for all of us for next week. Love it. Thank you, Donya, I would agree. The second brain, I must say, I don't even know. I've heard you refer to it, but is it something that we can actually, is this a technology, a tool, a platform, a widget that we can actually acquire? What is the second brain?
So it's not necessarily, there's a book that will teach you to create your own, right? Which is a lot of homework, right? Unfortunately. But I'd recommend everyone, just start having a very kind of strict methodology for capture, right? So if you remember that big graphic I had and had all those different tools, when some of them were Kindle apps and some of it were text and some of it were voice transcriptions and all this stuff, you have to be able to capture all this stuff. And that's true of getting things done, right? That was one of my things I talked about during the presentation. And it's true of building a second brain. So if everyone could start working on capturing, so as you can kind of tell, I use Dropbox as my main capturing system, right? And so I download PDFs, I store them in there. They're very searchable. I can tag them. I can put them into folders to organize them. So everything kind of starts happening off of Dropbox. And so I use paper for my text documents. I use the capture tool for my screenshots, to help me with all these things. And so that'd be my suggestion is really start thinking about what it is that you want to like one of Rob and my friends we were with yesterday, his wife does everything in OneNote, the Microsoft OneNote tool. She does everything in it, and she's extremely sophisticated at it.
Wow. So you're, again, second brain, you're just referring to like a storage or repository of different tools to do different things so that it's just alleviating the stress of your mind. I mean, this is so modern, right? This is such a modern approach for modern problems. I mean, I think we're just coming across so much information. And I think this brings up another topic. I'm not going to dive into it, but just mention it because we have 10 minutes left. And I'd love to hear any remaining questions from the viewers. But, how do both of you deal with this actually? Because you're coming across, I mean, you have very high stress jobs coming with all these customers, all this data, all this information. How much is too much? I found that this is something, maybe it's just a type of brain that I have, but I just get very overwhelmed by trying to capture all of this data. And I almost became like a paper hoarder because I would kind of like print it out and put it in a file in a folder or whatever. So what you guys are talking about is like a modern version of the filing cabinet. And maybe just speak to your own personal self-care approaches to protect your brain, and or how have you adapted to the information overload?
Yeah, I'll go first, Rob. And so you actually kind of intuitively kind of touched on it, Shannon. And so the idea is to have this capturing system so it frees your brain, right? Actually, it's the opposite of what you're thinking. The process of capturing all this stuff doesn't actually add more clutter. It actually declutters, right? And so that's directly from the Getting Things Done book. Like I can't manage. Like my wife is able to manage a to-do list that's like 100 to-do list items long in her head. I can't handle two. And I'm being serious. And so I think that kind of dovetails into like the second part is I have a very sophisticated to-do list approach, but it took me till I was in my mid 30s to realize that it takes like 30 minutes a day for me to manage my to-do list, and that's okay. I thought it was supposed to take 1 minute, and that was the mistake I made for so long. And so learning that it's okay to have a 30-minute to-do list process is perfectly fine, but it helps me get my stuff done, and it gets all my junk out of my brain and declutters my brain.
Yeah, to kind of get it out of your brain and just trust that it will be there when you're ready to deal with it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm going to add to that with a little bit of good news for everybody. We all have different systems. Some are, admittedly less efficient than others. Tom and I were talking about, we have a colleague that could take, tons and tons and tons of notes on the computer, right, in every call. So then they're able to, take those notes. If they, wonder what happened in a meeting, they can, have all of it basically fed into one of these GPT tools and say, oh, this is what happened in that meeting, right? In their own specific type of language and the way they would characterize it. Why I say that is I take notes by hand, right? It's very inefficient to retype, etc. But a lot of these tools now have, mobile applications, for example. So GPT does, Gemini does. And I've done this quite frequently. I take pictures, right? I'll take a picture of the 5 different pages and say, hey, summarize or, pull out an insight, right? It's very good to have some type of system, but a lot of these tools are making it easier to get past the inefficiencies that you might have within your system. And for those of you that have things like small businesses or running those, you'll see it, become as easy as just realizing you're going to make the investment, right? So whether you're using a Google Meet or a Zoom, you could decide to pay your problem away and have like a meeting recording assistant, and they will do fantastic jobs now of capturing everything that was said in a meeting so that it covers up the deficiency you might have in not being the best note taker. Right. So you can start, it's becoming so pervasive that, you can basically have these tools make it far easier for you to have that system that ultimately feeds into even more productivity down the line.
Yeah. I think it was Tom who introduced me to Otter AI, and I thought it was, mind blowing. Like, rather than me scribbling down notes, trusting that something is recording it, capturing it, and also putting highlights of saying these are the words that were used the most. I just thought it was mind blowing and so awesome. Herman, was that?
Otter is very good. I recommend the Fathom.video as one that another one that crosses over, between
Fathom.video.
Yeah, Fathom.video. Yeah.
Very cool. You might need to have an ongoing list of favorite tools. Herman's joking that he hasn't heard the term filing cabinet in a while. Well, I think I have one right over here. I kind of want to get rid of it. The idea was to like scan paperwork, but there's something about, actually I was in a coffee shop the other day and there's these two townies saying like, I really want to just hold the newspaper, I don't want to digitize it. There's something about pen to paper. However, obviously technology is the way of the future, and like we're saying, just to like make our lives easier. We have a couple minutes left, like 3 minutes. We've got a question saying, will AI's energy consumption become a significant issue if its use becomes widespread? How might this affect global warming? Additionally, how will privacy concerns be managed, particularly if professionals like doctors begin using AI models like ChatGPT? That's really interesting. I know that I've seen doctors use Dragon, like voice, technology, just to say, I'm trying to be present with a patient right now and I need to like make these notes. I've heard doctors complain a lot that, I'm supposed to be present with a patient, but I'm required to take all of these notes. So there has to be some sort of happy medium, but I don't know if you guys have any comments on that question.
Yeah, so I'll take the second part first. So, the idea of doctors using ChatGPT, I think, would be a problem, but there is a concept that the doctors would use their own large language models, which is what ChatGPT is fed by. So they'd be cordoned off, they'd be sectioned off from, the specific, like a large general purpose large language model like Gemini, like ChatGPT, or like Claude. And so they'd be cordoned off, they'd be private, there'd be like a silo that they'd operate in, and then the PII, the personally identifiable information that might be part of that, those queries would just be in that large language model just for that doctor, for example. That's the way I see it kind of working out. And then the first part of that question about AI consumption. So, computer usage is enormous throughout the world. And I think these generative AI, the computing that the AI will use will just always be just a small percentage, for a while. I don't really, that kind of answers the question. I don't see it being, I see it always being like a small percentage of the larger computing usage, worldwide, at least for a while. I mean, I have two phones. I don't know how much heat it puts off, but you certainly use a lot of electricity, and we all have phones. Will the ChatGPT use more energy than phones? I doubt it.
We have 1 minute remaining, and I'm going to ask a question from one of your friends, Imran, who says, any fun examples of hallucinations you guys encountered? I don't know if you know what that term is. For me, I'm thinking drug-induced, but I don't know if that's what that means, or what does that mean in the AI context?
So it basically means like the AI makes up an answer and is very authoritative about it, so it's confusing. right? But Tom McGonigal does that. I'm like, we had lunch, at that restaurant. Like, we never had lunch at that restaurant. Like, no, I remember, having lunch at that restaurant. You and I did it. We were there, and like you had a burger, and I had and so it's a very interesting kind of quality about this technology that it does in fact hallucinate, but it's just authoritatively, it's like, no, this is the answer, and it confuses people. But that's really why at the beginning of the talk I talked about it as intelligence augmentation. It's just an augmentation. It's not the definitive. Like, we can't trust it implicitly because it does have those hallucinations.
Interesting, almost like gaslighting you. No, really, this is the answer. Trust me.
Oh, you had a burger. Yeah.
I did. Okay, I believe you. I think that's a great place to end. I'd love both of you to just, if you have any, more closing thoughts or anything else to share, or places that we can find you or learn more about your work.
Yeah, so for me, it's I have all my socials and everything on a Linktree page. So it's linktr.ee/McGonigal, and so Linktree/McGonigal. So everyone's welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'm available for questions or whatever you need.
Awesome.
Yeah, LinkedIn is definitely the best way to get in touch with me. So Robert Love on LinkedIn. Boston, you could put in my current company UiPath if you want to further drill down. I think it might be another Robert Love in Boston. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for being here, learning more about AI and all of these incredible tools. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Robert. Thank you for your time. And again, thank you for all that you've done for me and for Whole You and trying to elevate and reach more people. Again, the mission is to help people to not only pursue their life's work, but also live a balanced, purposeful life. So we're talking about AI, we're talking about all kinds of topics related to professional development, but also wellness and service to society. So I hope that you'll join our future meetings. They happen weekly, but then every month we're going to have a special event like this where we're going to bring in guest speakers. So I hope you will join us, and you can find out more information at wholeu.info/community, capital community. So look forward to seeing you at future meetings and hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye.